What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, is trapped in a team that doesn't understand neither his car nor his talent? What if I told you that it was his former teammate Valtteri Bottas who broke the silence and revealed the truth behind Ferrari's most embarrassing technical disaster in years? Stay, because what you are going to discover is going to surprise you. It all started in the silence after one of the most painful Grand Prix on the calendar, the 2025 Singapore GP, a circuit that demands the most both from the driver and the car. There, between the suffocating humidity of Marina Bay and the asphalt that burns even the carbon fiber, Ferrari exposed all its weaknesses. But what no one expected was that, days later, the person who dealt the hardest blow would not be a rival, not even a journalist, but someone who knows Lewis Hamilton better than almost anyone on the grid, Valtteri Bottas. The Finnish driver, who shared the box with Hamilton at Mercedes for 5 years, broke the tacit pact of discretion that usually prevails between former teammates. He did it without fanfare, but with the surgical precision of someone who speaks with knowledge of the facts. In an interview with Crash.net, he dropped a phrase that changed everything: "I hope he can recover. But time will tell if he will." The sentence was wrapped in understanding, but the subtext was brutal. Bottas wasn't just pointing out the difficulties Lewis faces at Ferrari, he was doing something deeper. He was validating that the problems are real, structural, and that perhaps they won't be solved all year. Bottas knows what it means to live with Hamilton. He knows that he is methodical, obsessive with data, demanding to the point of being unbearable with engineers. But he also knows that Lewis only performs at his highest level when the car becomes an extension of his body. And that, at Ferrari, is simply not happening. When Bottas says that it is not easy to change teams after so much time at Mercedes being like the leading man, he is pointing to something deeper than technical adaptation. He is talking about ecosystem change. At Mercedes, Hamilton was not just the #1 driver. It was the center of gravity. Everything revolved around him, from aerodynamic developments to the way the team interpreted race data. Ferrari, on the other hand, is an institution with very marked hierarchies, where engineers have a strong voice, where internal politics are as relevant as lap times, and where adapting means giving up ground, even when you are 7-time world champion. That transition is not just technical, it's psychological. And Bottas knows it. That's why his words carry so much weight. Because they do not come from an external critic, but from someone who lived in Hamilton's orbit, who saw up close how he built his confidence, how he developed a car tailored to him. And now, looking at what's happening at Ferrari, you can see the signs of a disengaged driver. Not because he lacks talent, but because the environment is not giving him the necessary tools to project it. But the most devastating thing comes when Bottas assures that Hamilton still deserves great results in this sport. A phrase that might seem encouraging, but which, in this context, sounds more like a warning. If Lewis doesn't get them with Ferrari, then maybe it's the car, maybe it's the team, maybe it's the timing. And in that maybe, an abyss hides. The paddock knows it. The looks at the briefings, the conversations behind the scenes. Everyone is attentive to this new dynamic. Because when someone like Bottas, who has witnessed Hamilton's excellence firsthand, suggests that the problem may not have a quick solution, the message is clear. Ferrari is not just fighting its rivals. He is fighting against his own system. And that's a battle that, historically, has defeated many great drivers before him. The Singapore Grand Prix wasn't just a bad race for Ferrari. It was public confirmation that the SF25, the car that was to mark the technical renaissance of the Scuderia, is deeply compromised in its structural core. What happened at Marina Bay was not an isolated incident. It was the visible explosion of a problem that has been brewing since the first day of preseason testing. From lap 3 of the race, both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc received an instruction that is only given when everything else has failed: lift and coast. Lift your foot off the accelerator before each braking to relieve thermal stress on the brakes. This is not a conservation tactic, it is an emergency signal. It means that the system is on the verge of collapse, that each curve may be the last before irreversible failure. The most alarming thing is not that it happened, but why it happened. After the GP, Ferrari began an exhaustive technical analysis. What they found was devastating. The brake-by-wire braking system, a hybrid technology that fuses traditional hydraulic braking with the MGUK's energy recovery system, had failed critically. Telemetry showed intermittent losses of hydraulic pressure, thermal fluctuations outside safe ranges, and even worse, inconsistent pedal pressure response. In practice, this means that Hamilton, when he hit the brakes, could not know for sure what was going to happen. Sometimes he responded normally, other times he simply did not react with the required intensity. During the exit of turn 10, a point on the circuit that requires braking of up to 4.5 G, the sensors revealed that the SF25 barely reached 40% of that value. Not by the pilot's decision, because the car wouldn't allow it. The root of the problem lies in a design choice that now looks suicidal. In their attempt to maximize aerodynamic performance, Ferrari engineers redesigned the lower part of the chassis and the flat bottom to promote ground effect. This, in theory, should improve downforce without penalizing top speed. But in practice, it created high-pressure zones that altered airflow to the rear brake cooling ducts. The result was a paradox. The faster the car went, the less efficiently the brakes cooled. And on a circuit like Singapore, with few straights and multiple intense braking zones, the system had no respite. The SF25 was cooked from the inside. This failure is not simply a technical hiccup. It is evidence that the car's design philosophy is wrong. Reliability was sacrificed in exchange for a promise of performance that never came. And that decision, made in a meeting room in Maranello months ago, now takes its toll in the form of abandonments, frustration, and a Lewis Hamilton who finds himself completely disarmed in battle. Because for a driver of his caliber, not being able to trust the brake is like taking away his instinct. He becomes a passenger. Every curve is a question. Every braking entry is a gamble. And that not only compromises your performance, it erodes your confidence lap after lap. The irony is brutal. Ferrari, the most legendary team in the history of Formula One, has given one of the most successful drivers of all time a car that does not know how to brake. And while crisis meetings accumulate in Maranello and engineers search for desperate solutions in the wind tunnel, the clock is ticking. The championship advances. The points slip away. And with each race, the gap between illusion and reality becomes more unbridgeable. Lewis Hamilton, for his part, is beginning to show signs of tension. Because at this point in his career, Hamilton has no time for long-term bets. You need results, you need structure, and you need evolution. And that is where Ferrari is in danger. Because if they fail to adapt the SF25 to Hamilton's demands, if they fail to turn their experience into a competitive advantage and not dead weight, they risk losing more than races. They may lose the trust of the most valuable driver they have signed since Michael Schumacher. The problem is not simply technical. It's philosophical. At Ferrari, decisions still go through layers of management that slow down the evolution of the car. There are cultural clashes between what the team considers a priority and what Hamilton needs on the track. From how data is processed to how it is communicated in real time. Every discrepancy adds up. And the result is an environment where efficiency is replaced by bureaucracy. Can this change? Yes, but it won't be easy. The Scuderia needs an internal revolution. A change in mentality that allows you to fully align with the needs of your star driver. That means redesigning not only its car but also its way of operating. Doing so requires courage. It involves breaking with years of tradition. It involves, ultimately, recognizing that if you want to win with Lewis Hamilton, you have to build a team for him. The pressure is already here. Because McLaren leads the championship. Mercedes has made a qualitative leap. And Red Bull, even in the midst of the institutional chaos it is going through, still has in Max Verstappen a gladiator capable of compensating for the shortcomings of the RB21. If Ferrari does not respond in the next races, it will be clear that 2025 will not be its year of podiums or winning races. And the worst of all is that this will open a Pandora's box that no one in Maranello wants to face. How long will Lewis Hamilton want to continue betting on a project that does not put him in a position to win? The contract is signed, but not patience. And in Formula One, agreements can change. History has proven it more than once. If Ferrari does not listen, if it does not react, if it does not deliver, then the red dream can end as an unfinished story. Another in the long list of frustrations that the Scuderia has suffered in its eternal quest to return to the top. And now that you know the whole story, that you have seen the technical collapse of the SF25, that you have heard Bottas' words, that you have felt Hamilton's frustration lap after lap, the big question remains floating in the air without a clear answer, but with a weight that only the great themes of Formula One can generate. How long can a project that already shows signs of collapse from its foundations be sustained? How much more can a driver of Lewis Hamilton's stature endure, knowing that his time at the top of the sport is finite, and that every wasted race is an opportunity that never comes back? Do you think Hamilton will take the reins of this project and transform it with his experience and leadership? Or are we witnessing the beginning of the end of one of the most ambitious partnerships in recent years? Do you see a realistic exit in 2025? Or do you think this story is doomed to repeat itself like so many others in Ferrari's past? I want to know your opinion.